Hello and welcome to another video. This video will be about how to start an item research blank spreadsheet. So I've already done it for all the virtual assistants for the day today. So all the virtual assistants would be right here. So I've already done it for Jenny, for Ravi, and for Rochelle. If you were to go into their folder and to research, you could see that Jenny, I gave her one item research. But when you add up all of these items, she only has a potential not of 317 items because it goes back 90 days. If you divide 317 by 3, you'll get the 30 days of items that Jenny will review, which is only 105 items. Now, that does seem like a decent amount of items, but it's actually pretty easy to go through those items within 2 or 3 minutes. And if it takes 3 minutes times 105 items divided by a 60-minute hour cycle, and that's about 5 hours. So she might be able to do that in one shift, but she could also see a recurring theme of many, many items showing up negative, and she could skip right through those items much faster. So I had a feeling she might blow through those items very quickly. So what I did instead is I automatically gave her a number 2 research, and she could turn this in the next day if she needs to, but most likely um, she will need this one also. This has 1,300 items. So let's go ahead and go over the importance of how to go through the item research and how to know what's add from the master seller list here. So on the master seller list, this is what you pull up after you've taken in all of the virtual assistance items from today and you've merged them to the master seller list and the master item list. You'll have an updated list. Once you have an updated list, this is when you give them back a brand new one. So let's go ahead and say for Jenny, this will be 8/20/2019. We'll have it ready and raring to go for when Jenny is ready and she's finished those two spreadsheets that I just spoke of. So there's a couple things to know. And I could try to go through and update these sellers in red just to help you out. But there's two things to know. If you sort by the profit, by the lowest profit percentage, these are items where we documented anywhere between 2 and 5 items. And if they were negative items, then we documented the seller's negative, how far they go negative. So since these sellers are all technically negative sellers, we're going to mark them all as red because they're not good sellers. We don't want to bother going into their store and seeing if they're good sellers again in the future. We can if we run out of sellers, but most likely we're not going to be looking at them in the future. The same thing goes for all of these sellers also, all the way down to maybe 4%, negative 4%. And the reason I say negative 4% is because technically, um, when the researchers are more used to researching, as you've experienced, Rama, yourself, Overstock is a more sophisticated supplier. So instead of being $1,000 times 1.22, which would be $1,220 for a break even, technically, we could actually have a lower price of 1.1. And how we would get that would be $1,100 times 0.87 for the eBay fees would be $957 for break even. So how will we get that for break even? Well, $1,000 times 0.9 for a 10% off coupon. But then we have 2% cash back on a credit card, and we also have 2% or 4% or 6%, depending on the website, cash back with an affiliate link. So let's say an extra 4% off. So that will be times 0.96, and that's 864. So if this is 1,100 times 0.87, minus 864, we still have a profit of $100. So let's rewind that again. So $100 times 0.9 times 0.96, oops, $1,000 times 0.9 times 0.96 for an extra 4% is 864. Now if you were to do the math going back this way, maybe it will make sense because this is a new base price. We get a 10% discount and then a 4% discount with cashback. So our total price, instead of being $1,000 at the retailer, at the source, it's 864. Times 1.22 would be 1,054. So if we're selling at 1,100, we're actually making a $54 profit. So you can make a profit with 1.1 instead of 1.22 if you have additional coupons, 10% or more, from certain sources. We do have that from Home Depot, Overstock, got an extra 7 or 8% from Target and from Amazon, but those are more complicated things to explain. So basically what you see here is if this is negative 4%, that's like saying 1.22, they're profitable at 1.18. But we could be profitable at 1.08 really. So we could actually get an extra 10% profit from these sellers if the researchers knew how to utilize the coupons to lower this value for this source. These would actually all be profitable items. But that's a little too sophisticated at the moment. We're going to go ahead and stick with the basics and mark these as red and come back to them in the future. So there we are. So these are all the negatives. We basically want to just ignore all of these negatives for the time being. We have even more zeros down there, and they've all been looked at recently. So let's go ahead and mark all of these as red also. Of course, you don't need to do this, but you will understand why they're all marked as red. So those are all of the sellers that are not profitable. If we're running low on items and you need items really badly, you could mark Z to A for profit over $50. Now once you do this, these are sellers who have multiple items that have been found over $50. So now when we search all of these items, 1,222 divided by 3 would be about 400 items in the past month that are potentially profitable. Even if it's only half, that would be 200 items, which is still a lot of items. And that's only the first 9 sellers. We have a lot of $50 or higher sellers now. We have 125 of them. So if you really need a seller, what you could do is you can go through, like I've done right here, and look for the oldest scan date, and then simply copy paste it over here, and then last check date is here for the virtual assistant so they know the date of the last check for that seller, and then you come over here and you mark it like that. And how you do that is you hold down the Alt key and then you push 1, 7, and then that pops up. If it doesn't pop up, you could just copy paste it. Now technically I don't want her to do overstock, so I would delete that. So another way to look if a seller is bad or not, let's sort by largest to smallest and then sort by date inspected. So the current date inspected that's the oldest, because we sorted by oldest to newest, is 7/18. But you'll notice a lot of these are red because the ones that we looked at first at the end of July were not always good sellers, and that's for a couple reasons. The amount of items that they had that were sold were not very high. So those could be marked like that. So we know those are not good sellers because they have less than 10 items available. Another thing that we could do is we can go in here and we could mark all of these as bad. Let's go back and sort by date inspected here. And it starts to look a little bit messy with all of this red, but there's a good reason why. We do not want to scan the store of these sellers, even though there was 2 good items at one point. We're not going to scan them because there's not enough items to look through. You want at least 10 or more items. That means 3 items have sold in the past month. If it's only 2 or 3, it means maybe 1 item has sold in the past month. And that's not worth it to put this seller over here when we could find somebody with 50 or 60 or 100 or 200 sales. That's a lot more items to go through. If we filled up with 1 or 2, we would have to have a list this big, which is way too big. So basically ignore the sellers who have less than 10. The next one we have is 774 right here, and it's from Overstock. So she doesn't know Overstock too well at the moment, but we could still go ahead and add this over and see if she comes up with anything. Now I'm going to push the triangle there. I'm going to skip this guy because he's all red and he has low sales. This next one is good. We'll copy these two. And this one is all red, so I'm going to skip him. These two are good. So I'll copy these two. These are all red. Even though that there are profitable items, there are not enough items that they've actually sold. So we're going to ignore them for now until they grow their store to become bigger. And once they get up to a higher level, 70, 170, more items sold per month, then we will start examining their stores a little bit closer. So as you see, a lot of these we're not going to be using because it's red right here, it's red right here, red again, red again, but these two are good. And then red again, red, red again. There's a lot of bad sellers and a lot of good sellers. About 1/3 are not profitable, 1/3 are very profitable, and 1/3 are in the middle somewhere. So we could add these two also. And then we have a filled up spreadsheet for Jenny for the 20th. So we're good to go. We could actually go ahead and click File. You don't want to save, because if you save, it's going to ruin your blank spreadsheet. That's not good. So save as. And then I'm going to go into Jenny's folder, into Research. Jenny 8/20/19. And now I just click Save. And then when that's ready, I could send that over to Jenny. I could even go in and open up another blank list again. Item research here. And I could do another one for Rochelle here. For the 20th also. I can keep scrolling down and see who needs to be added next, just with the same method. Or I could do a different method, which is sold, largest to smallest, and then date inspected, oldest to newest. Now when I scroll down all the way past these scan dates, I could see sellers who have not been scanned yet. So these is the dates of yesterday and today and the day before. And these are the sellers that are in the process of being examined. And there's currently a spreadsheet out there with a virtual assistant that is looking into these sellers. Now once this ends right here, how this is sorted, because we sorted sold first and then date, we have the highest amount of sales listed here once there's no information here. So we have 500, 80, 70, 50, 40, 20, and then it drops off. As mentioned before, we're going to ignore people below this point, but we still have a decent amount of sellers going all the way up here that we could have somebody scan, and they've never been scanned before. So I just added a bunch of target stores, as you can see right here, And I can go ahead and just copy paste these over, and then I can have Rochelle on the 20th look up all these Target stores just to see, are all these profitable items actually from Target, or are they from Amazon, or from a different seller. So same thing as usual, we're going to copy paste here, bring it down, and there's a spot for one more, so let's add that one Walmart source also. And there we are. That's how easy it is. So there's a couple different ways to add it. If you want new sellers, you sort by sold and then date inspected, and then come all the way down where this starts to open up, and then you have it sorted by the best sellers to look at first, which are the sellers with the most items with no scan date. We could still go through these sellers on the bottom if you want to start with these, going down to the 10s, because there's some good web restaurant stores down here. They could be holding some golden items down here. And then when we finish those sellers, just simply go back to the original method, which is largest to smallest and oldest to newest. And then simply go through red, 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 red. Everyone's red. And looks like there's two right here. So then you could add those two over to the next VA assignment. All of this information I will gradually add and update over time. Now that you're going to be doing this for me, I could possibly update this information daily. It's a little bit more in depth, but this data and this data over here lets us know if they've sold under 100 items, statistically, how many over $50 profitable items are in their store. Well, there's going to be 90 sellers out of 397, so there's a 22% chance. If they have under 100 sales, there's a 22% chance they're a good seller. And if they're over 300 items, the chance is actually lower that they're a good seller. So it's interesting to know if they have less than 100 items, we're probably going to find more profitable items. So it's an interesting data point to know, and I'll be updating these. The sell-through rating is what we originally went on when I first started this research technique, is a sell-through rating right here, which is why we document it. And there is actually a reoccurring theme here. If they have 100 items listed and they only sell one item of those 100, that would be 1% sell-through rating. So 1 to 10 items out of 100 items total would be 1 to 10%. Those people tend to not be very profitable people. Now, if you have a sell-through rating of 30% or higher, so if you have 100 items in your store and you sell 30 of them, that person most likely, 1/4 of the time, so 1 out of every 4 of those sellers, will actually be profitable, which is almost twice as much as the ones with a lower sell-through rating. This is the same thing for the higher profit percentage too. You're going to find more sellers with profit over $50 if they have a profit of 15% or higher. 2/3 of the sellers will be that way. So all this data we'll gather. I'll teach you all this data in the future as well. Even all the sources are up here, such as which sources actually have the most profitable people. Well, the easiest people to find are Walmart and Amazon dropshippers, because Walmart is 2-day shipping, so is Amazon. Target is kind of slow. Home Depot can be slow. Overstock is not always very good. And Web Restaurant has a lot of good and bad about using them. So a lot of people actually use Walmart and Amazon. That's why you could find the most profitable sellers from Walmart and Amazon. But if you looked a little bit harder into the data, you could see that maybe Target would be a good source too. Home Depot is good, but Web Restaurant is actually one of the better ones. So if you didn't want to go with what everyone else is going with, you can go with Web Restaurant, or maybe Target, or maybe Home Depot. So that's what I'm going to try to focus on in the future also, is finding better sellers for the virtual assistants to research in Web Restaurant, Target, Home Depot, and of course Lowe's is the missing one over here. So that's a breakdown of the sellers list, just so you know what all of this information kind of means and how you can sort through this seller list to find sellers for the virtual assistants to upload with. So there's a lot of red ones, a lot of bad ones, and they're documented right here as 154 not profitable sellers. 124 are over $50, which is a good amount, and then 542 sellers total. And again, if you really wanted to just find some items really quickly, the best way to do it is to sort right here from Z to A, and then just look for the oldest one, which is right here. But they only have 2 right there. So maybe we can keep scrolling down until we find more. Maybe an interesting little loophole is these guys right here. They've been marked as bad sellers, but we found an item that's over $50 profit. So maybe we could have these items, these sellers, re-scanned because maybe the virtual assistant did it incorrectly and documented the store incorrectly. Because there's profitable items in the store, but for some reason they were marked negative. So definitely these ones can be looked at again. And anyone with an older date, 7/31 is almost 3 weeks ago, we could probably have that person scanned again. The sweet spot is if it's been more than 2 weeks, we could rescan that same seller. It's better to wait 3 or 4 weeks, but 2 weeks is okay if we're running out of sellers, but we have plenty of sellers to choose from. So that's about it. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Message me on Skype or leave a comment down in the video. Thanks so much for watching.